Arian Advaita subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
DZS Ronan subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
The Windy Red Panda subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
Fung Siri Sub Sane Shri subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
Akbar Sayaputra subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
Samuel Crow subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
Adam Stabelli subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
Felipe Isao Minami subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
William Irwin subscribe to the channel.
Entry.
Songahan subscribe to the channel.
Or, I'm sorry, hello everyone! I forgot to turn the mic on for a second there. Let me know how it sounds. Let me know if I'm a little too quiet or the music's a little too loud, and I'll make adjustments accordingly. I hope you all enjoyed seeing the people who have subscribed to the channel in the last month get their names up via my Stream Elements alert system. If your name didn't appear and you subscribed in the last month for some reason, try unsubscribing and resubscribing. And hopefully that'll fix it. I've never seen a complaint from somebody yet, but I do try and play all the alerts that come in between each stream every time we're in the start screen. So hopefully that one went off pretty well. But obviously, yeah, we're back with another solo Vacuuminator live stream. You might remember we had a bit of a gap there, and then we did one of these last month because I needed a last-minute replacement for a video I didn't feel like releasing anymore. And that stream actually went pretty well. So I got a thought in my head to ask around, do a little bit of a poll over on the community tab, and see if folks would be interested / okay with me doing a stream once a month instead of a video, because doing videos takes up a lot of my spare time. So it kind of is either I'm doing a video or I'm using the time I would use on post-production for a video to prep for a stream, and then the night I'm finishing it up is the night I do the stream. So on a normal week right now, I would be editing a video for tomorrow, but instead I'm here hanging out talking with you guys, and I wanted the streams to be a little bit more based around a particular topic. But before we get into that, I'm going to take a quick look at the chat. Hello, Buster. Hello, Octuple Canvas 89. I hope everybody is doing pretty well tonight. We're going to be getting into quite a bit of stuff tonight. I've got a little bit of a game plan here, more like bullet points in a Google Doc, as I usually do with my videos, and we're just going to kind of wing it, and at various points I'll check on the chat and reply to anything you guys have said or asked. But right now, let's go ahead and get into the topic of this stream, because last month we had several topics. I was just kind of spitballing on some current events, but this month I wanted to very much talk about a specific subject, and you might have noticed that this month was kind of subtly themed around tokusatsu properties from different eras of my time as a tokusatsu fan. And I figured it would be a good way to kind of wrap it up by giving some greater context to all of that by doing a bit of a story of how I got into tokusatsu, but not just the conventional, oh, I liked Power Rangers, I found out about Kamen Rider, and the rest was history. I'm going to kind of talk about the creators who helped me gain greater context for what tokusatsu is and guided me along that journey. That journey that has ultimately ended up in, obviously, me having this channel and doing a weekly tokusatsu podcast. If you don't know already, I do a weekly tokusatsu podcast with Buster Corp over on @Modular Media here on YouTube. It's called This Week in Toku, or TWIT for short. We release a new episode every Tuesday afternoon. We just put out a new episode today covering the finale of Kamen Rider Geats, amongst many other things. And obviously we're going to be back next week covering the premiere of Gachard and plenty of other good stuff. If you haven't listened to it yet, I highly recommend giving it a shot because I really enjoy making it, and I feel like it's at least a pretty good product for people to listen to. That's all the plugging I need to do for now. Let's go ahead and get into the first person I want to talk about tonight. And that requires a little bit of a context, because like any wee lad here in America who is a tokusatsu fan, I was a bit of a fan of the Power Rangers growing up. A franchise that just celebrated its 30th anniversary, and I kind of pointedly ignored on the channel because of how that fandom has been making me feel as of late. But nevertheless, I do still have a lot of ties to Power Rangers. First and foremost, that it was my first tokusatsu series I really engaged with. Obviously, Godzilla vs. Biollante is the first tokusatsu I can remember seeing, but I didn't become a tokusatsu fan after that movie. I just kind of went oh, that's neat, and I went on with my life. It wasn't until a year or two later when I started seeing ads for Power Rangers Dino Thunder on SPD, and I went, this looks interesting, this looks fun. And I didn't watch it. I didn't find a way to watch it, rather, for a while, because my mom was one of those mothers who did not approve of the Power Rangers. And not even because she found it distasteful, but because her sister told her it was too violent. And that was a thing with my mom with a lot of shows. She was that way with friggin' The Batman, open bracket 2004 closed bracket. She was that way with Pokemon. It was always something where I would get interested in something. She'd say, I've heard that's not actually good for kids. Maybe you shouldn't watch that. And then I'd go behind her back and watch it, and then she'd just be okay with it after that. So that happened with Power Rangers when we got cable, and SPD was airing on Jetix. SPD was the first season I really watched in earnest. I didn't catch all of it as a kid, but I did watch quite a bit of it, and I enjoyed it, and my mom was just kind of okay with it from then on. However, I did immediately drop off with Mystic Force, because as a kid, I just thought the concept of Power Rangers that got their powers from just nebulous magic was stupid. I was one of those people as a kid. And didn't hear hide nor head of Operation Overdrive. I did catch a little bit of Jungle Fury as a kid, but it wasn't until a few years later when I was watching this man, Louis Lobhog Linkara, that I got really into Power Rangers as a teenager and a young adult, because obviously Louis has the sort of famous within the fandom History of Power Rangers series. And I didn't actually find History of Power Rangers until it was well underway. I watched it, I came on with the Jungle, or with the, with the Wild Force episode. I thought at the time, I was just like, oh, I remember Power Rangers. I never heard of this season. Let's check this out. Let's learn about this. And eventually I ended up going back and binge watching it. And that was kind of my introduction to Power Rangers as a wider franchise rather than just the little bits I knew as a kid. And Louis didn't just do that with Power Rangers. The whole reason I was even keeping his an eye on his content. See, this is the kind of stuff that gets cut out in pre-recorded videos. The reason I was keeping an eye on his content in the first place was because I was getting into comics at the time. And he was one of several comic creators I was watching at the time to kind of get a feel for the medium and what I wanted to check out. It just so happened I was checking That Guy with the Glasses for updates one day, because I didn't find out about his own website, Blogspot, until well after this. And I saw that he had released the episode on Wild Force, and then obviously that led me to get interested in Power Rangers as a whole. I started ingratiating myself into the online sphere and learning a little bit more about it, but I didn't actually go back and watch most of Power Rangers until about 2 years after it all got dumped on Netflix by Saban. I heard about it all getting dumped on Netflix, but I didn't quite have the impetus to watch it just yet. It took a little bit more time, and the fact that Megaforce was coming out, that I went like, oh, 20th anniversary season, there's probably going to be a lot of references and stuff. I guess I'll watch everything. I'll learn everything there is to learn about Power Rangers, and I'll become a knowledgeable fan so that I don't feel lost by this big anniversary season. And obviously that didn't go too well, but nevertheless, that was kind of my first step into being an adult tokusatsu fan. And I know there's people out there who don't consider Power Rangers to be real tokusatsu because it's an American production and it's much more explicitly aimed at kids in its writing than a lot of other franchises. But, like, most of the footage is from an actual damn tokusatsu, and it still follows a lot of the same storytelling principles. So I don't know why you wouldn't just call it out a tokusatsu unless you're just like being really, really OCD about, like, well, it has to be from Japan. Okay, well then plenty of Korean shows people like to lump in with tokusatsu aren't tokusatsu. Plenty of Chinese shows aren't tokusatsu. Where does it end? You know, it's the same argument as anime. Some people say Avatar: The Last Airbender is an anime, and I'm totally cool with that. If that's how you want to categorize that show, go right for it. It definitely fits in some of those same areas, and that's how I feel about Power Rangers. And I sit in a kind of similar place with Linkara these days, because I'm not like an active fan of him anymore, and I haven't been for years. I'll dip in and out every once in a while just to see what he's doing, or if he's talking about a comic that I'm interested in or I've already read and I'd like to know his take on it. But I don't actively keep up with him, and I'm certainly not one of the people who, like, just takes his opinions on Power Rangers as gospel and parodies them to everybody else. I think that's kind of asinine and annoying when people do that, actually. But I do still have a lot of respect for the man, and I really appreciate him for helping get me into comics and tokusatsu, and again, just a lot of respect for him, just in the fact that he's a content creator that was able to grow a really strong audience and keep that audience for so long. Like, obviously, he's not the most popular guy ever anymore, but he still has a very dedicated fan base, and he's still making enough money doing this to be able to live off of his own brand. And trying to do that these days, I really have a lot of respect that he's able to do that at all. So I know it's kind of a popular thing to clown on former That Guy with the Glasses creators these days, but I've got nothing but respect and appreciation for Linkara for helping get me into tokusatsu and comics. So much so that, hey, Modular Media isn't just home to a tokusatsu podcast, it's also home to a comic book podcast that's actually live. Every Sunday night, myself and Boingo Writer discuss in a comic book adaptation, the latest comic book news, and all the comics we've read in the last week on the No Prize podcast, which Airs Sunday nights sometime after 9. We usually try and shoot for 9:30, but sometimes it's a little later than that, just depending on life happenings. But yeah, much like This Week in Toku, there is a huge backlog for that show. I would highly encourage people go check out youtube.com/Modular Media. But I've been rambling for, I want to say, about 8 minutes now, so I'm going to take a quick peek at the chat, see what's going on there. Oh, hey, Database, you saw your face on the thumbnail? Don't worry, we'll get to you, buddy. We'll get to you. Got SH Figure Arts, Ultraman, and Kamen Rider. Yeah, we're going to get into that in just a little bit. Don't worry, everybody. Hello, Isabella. I'm going to guess that's Isabella P, is how you pronounce that. Yep, happy anniversary to Power Rangers. Linkar is also the reason you got into Power Rangers and comics. Cool. Glad to hear we share that. Octuple watches Linkar's videos. Yeah, Linkar definitely has grown. He's not doing the exact same stuff he used to do. He's not one of those creators. He is still very similar to how he started out, but he's fleshed out the format in a lot of really interesting and entertaining ways. And, his storylines aren't exactly high art, but I still find them entertaining when I get time to check them out. But that's about all I have to say on him. So I'm caught up with the chat now. Not gonna halt this thing. We gotta keep it moving. We are live, everybody. So let's talk about somebody else who's very important to my journey as a Tokusatsu fan, and that's internet personality Vangelis. If you've not heard of Vangelis before, he's one of the original crop of toy reviewers here on YouTube. The Transformers 07 to Transformers Animated initial influx of people reviewing Transformer toys as the beginning of toy reviews on YouTube, and then that growing into a whole entire medium unto itself, toy reviews on YouTube, that is. And one of the main things he was actually known for, even early on in his time, was talking about SH Figure Arts. He was one of the first people in the West to really give attention to that toy line, because these days SH Figure Arts does all kinds of shit, but it was originally a Kamen Rider toy line. The SH in SH Figure Arts actually stands for Sochok Henshin, or Equip Transformation, which was the Kamen Rider retail line at the time SH Figure Arts started. SH Figure Arts was just, here's the adult collectible alternative to the retail line that's for kids. And I actually didn't find Vangelis at this time. He was also somebody I found through that guy with the glasses. Despite what you think about that site these days, back in the time when I found Vangelis, which was 2011, 2012, it was still a well-respected and aspirational website for a lot of creators that helped people like me find a lot of people we wouldn't have otherwise. Case in point, Vangelis himself, who, I can't remember what the first video of his I saw. It had to have been stuffing Transformers, because I didn't go to him looking for Tokusatsu or Kamen Rider stuff. I think it must have just been like one of the first things he posted to that guy with the glasses was a Transformers review, because, as I've said many times on the channel, Tokusatsu is something I came to in my late teens, early 20s. For most of my life, I was a Transformers and DC Comics adaptations fan. Those were my two main things. So I probably saw him doing a Transformers review, watched that, went, oh, this guy is really good, I'm going to look at everything else he's done. And I think on that guy with the glasses at the time, he had a re-edited version of his reviews of SH Figure Arts, the original SH Figure Arts for Kamen Rider Black and Black RX, as well as their bikes, and a SH Figure Arts Kamen Rider Joker and Kamen Rider Skull review. And that was like my first real exposure to Kamen Rider. That was how I first kind of learned of the franchise's existence, just through, these are some really cool looking toys. I love the design of these suits. Like, no joke, Skull here, this is a figure art I have wanted for so incredibly long, because I saw Vangelis' review of the original SH Figure Arts Skull, and I just loved the suit design. I actually only just recently watched Double for the first time last year, but ever since I watched that review Vangelis did, Skull has been one of my favorite suit designs in all of Tokusatsu. So I'm super hyped to be busting into this thing in just a little bit. But I watched both of those reviews, and then he had done a podcast episode with a gentleman named Apollo Z Hack, who was also a creator on That Guy with the Glasses at the time. But I didn't become as avid a fan of him because he's very much a kaiju guy, and while I appreciate kaiju as a genre, I'm definitely more of a Henshin hero guy. So I watched all of his videos on That Guy with the Glasses at the time, and I would watch his YouTube project Monstrosities for about the first year and a half of it, but I haven't really kept up since, and I don't know what he's up to these days. Vangelis, however, I have stuck with ever since, because that initial podcast, which I think was Vadiosonic Episode 1, Apollo Change, I found that discussion so interesting. I thought everything they brought up sounded like something I'd like to look into, and from there I kind of went on my own journey as a Kamen Rider and as a Tokusatsu fan in general. There's a lot of different ways we intersect and sort of cross with things. I actually re-listened to that podcast for the first time in a couple of years recently, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that's said in that podcast anymore, but I do still really appreciate it, and I enjoyed the listen, especially because it was kind of like research and prep work for the fact that we actually got to talk to Vangelis very recently on the Modular Media flagship show, Modular Components. We try to have guests on there as regularly as we can, and he was nice enough to come on at the start of this month for episode 106, and it was a really good, fun 2-hour discussion where I got to tell him, hey, I probably wouldn't be a Tokusatsu fan without your influence. I watched these things in particular, and they led me to get interested in everything, and thank you for that. And he was just kind of very cool and humble about it, and it was a nice little moment we had, I thought. But that's all I've really got to say on him now. I still think all of his content is really killer. He's still doing really great, concise, but entertaining and dynamic toy reviews. I still listen to his Transformers podcast, WTF at TFW, and I try and keep up with the other stuff he does, but there's so many channels and creators in general that I follow these days that I'm always guaranteed to be a little bit behind on everyone and miss one or two things. But obviously, Vangelis is somebody who's really important to me, and if you haven't listened to that episode of Modular Components yet, I would highly encourage you to go over to youtube.com/Modular Media and check it out. But speaking of checking things out, why don't I check up on the chat real quick? Welcome to the chat, Alec Burton 313, I'm going to assume is how you pronounce that. I don't watch Sentai, sorry, I only watch Power Rangers. That's perfectly fair. I know there's people who go both ways. Some people just watch Power Rangers, some people just watch Sentai. I'm somebody who watches both, and I know there's plenty of people who do that too. I think all perspectives are valid as long as you acknowledge the inherent crossovers therein. Like, that is one thing I would say I do tend to get kind of critical of with Linkara sometimes in terms of history of Power Rangers. Some of the stuff he'll say is talking about an idea in Power Rangers like it's inherently a Power Rangers idea, and it's like, dude, that came from the Sentai. You should talk about how they're recontextualizing that to fit in their story. But I also know he doesn't watch Sentai, and he doesn't take a lot of that into account with his research, so I kind of let him off the hook with it. It's only when I see other people, again, parroting his opinions like they're the holy gospel verbatim that I tend to get really annoyed about that. I got a question for you. Why did you start making videos outside and not in your room? I'm just asking. honestly, I just got to a point, and I think I explained this in the video I did at the end of last year, beginning of this year, that kind of kicked off the weekly video thing. I just felt really claustrophobic doing the standard YouTuber standing in front of my bookshelves thing after a couple of videos that I did last year, and I ultimately decided it was not for me, and I thought it would be much more dynamic and interesting, and it would also help me set myself apart from a lot of people who do the same kind of videos as me to film outside. Obviously, I'm not doing that right now. I am streaming from my bedroom, but that's only because I don't have the money for an outside streaming kit. If I did, I probably would attempt that at some point, but I don't. So, hey everybody, patreon.com/thevacuuminator. $1 a month. Get your name in the credits, get a behind-the-scenes podcast, get early access to videos. It's a good deal, I think, and it would help me, I don't know, maybe eventually afford an outside streaming kit. That's a very lofty ambition for somebody at my level, but maybe one day. Ironically, I didn't actually watch any of Linkaro's videos until after I saw him at PMC 2010, and I wanted to know why he was so highly recognized within the PR fandom. Yeah, I think you've said that a couple of times before, Database, and it is... I've always found that a little bit funny, just because I've always known him as, like, the guy that a lot of people base their opinions on when it comes to Power Rangers. And, again, I do find that kind of irksome. But the fact that you are also... I also consider you to be way more ingrained in the fandom and knowledgeable about Power Rangers than him, and you somehow didn't know who he was until you saw him at a PMC. That's very funny to me, but life can be funny like that anyway. Just like life can be funny about you watching a video about an SH Figuarts almost 10-15 years ago now, and then you finally getting to open that Figuarts now. So let's do one of those openings right now. I'm going to go ahead and crack into SH Figuarts Shinshoku Seiho Kamen Rider Skull. This is a figure that I got used on eBay with some insurance money a couple of months ago, and have just been meaning to open ever since. Life's very busy for me these days, so I can only open like a couple figures a week, and I don't buy just a couple figures a week, so the two open pile does get a bit backed up sometimes. But we're going to try and clear a little bit of that out of the way tonight by finally cracking into this figure that I've technically been wanting to lay my hands on for close to 15 years now. It's a bit crazy to think about. Got a little insert here. I think, yeah, it's just your basic Figuarts instructions, just telling you where stuff goes and how all the swappable parts works. Nothing really that fancy, but nice of them to include it. And oof, oh man, there is the boy himself, looking absolutely resplendent. Should put him over here so he's not blocked by the logo vac. Kamen Rider Skull, Naruki Sokiji is how I think you pronounce his name. I don't know, it's been a minute since I've seen Double. But, yeah, this was described as used on eBay, but it looks pretty much untouched, aside from the tape was cut. So, let's take a quick look at this guy. I will say I have one little nitpick right off the bat compared to the original Figuarts Skull. They put a lot more paint and like weathering on the scarf than the original version. The original version, it was just kind of a stark white. Here it's like very dirty and muddy looking, which I think is more suit accurate, but it doesn't look more suit accurate to me. That scarf looked very stark white to me in the show and the movies, but maybe it's just my eyes or the camera not picking things up that are there in the physical suit. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of test out all of this guy's joints. Yeah. I tell you what, man. I love the body they used for most of the double suits. It is just a good generic rider body. Like, I think the closest we've come to a body that looks just as like solid, slightly armored, generic black superhero suit since this is the base entry suits in Geats. I do really like those, and I'm tempted to pick up one, but I haven't yet. So everything is a tad stiff feeling. There's a bit of rubbing against parts, but it's not awful. Nothing's like so tight I feel like I'm gonna break it yet. It's just a little more sturdy than you'd expect almost. Wow, that frickin' double jointed knee there. That is one of the smoothest knee bends I've ever seen. And I have a couple Figuarts Senchoku Seihos now, but I really like how that looks. That looks so natural. And there's actually a lot of internal suit detailing that gets revealed when you do that. Love it when they put that on, not just Figuarts, but any kind of action figures. So, yeah, seems like this guy has all your standard Figuarts articulation, and it all works pretty well, feels pretty robust. Nothing on him feels at all fragile, which is a real good sign. Coming right out of the box as a used Figuart. So I'm going to take a quick look at some of his accessories. Obviously, these are all very small, so I'm going to be real careful with them because I do have a hungry carpet monster down there. Let's move these trays out of the way, and I'll show you guys right now. All the accessories. You get 2 different hats, an alternate faceplate to represent before the skull got the big S crack in it and it got ripped. You got 2 different scarves. You got a calm and a billowing one. Got a whole bunch of hands. The skull magnum, a double driver, a suitcase with a bunch of Gaia memories in it, and his Gaia memory. Yeah. I am tempted to take some of this out and pose him around for a minute. I don't know. It's a lot of small parts. I want to at least see how he looks with the with one of the scarves and hats on. So we're going to do that real quick. Let's just gonna try. Gently lift a couple of these out. So I am also interested in what the material of the scarves feels like. It's a little pliable, but it's not like rubbery. This definitely is like a PVC, so I wouldn't like squish these or anything. And feels like same can be said for the hat. So looks like you just plug it into this here hole. And pop the hat on. Oh! The hat does not go on very securely. That's a bit surprising. But luckily it's big enough that it can't easily be lost. So it feels like you need to push it down a little bit to get it to lock in place. But it's not really happening. So I'm going to guess best idea with this guy is probably just to pose him and then set the hat on top of his head. But as is, I do dig how that looks. That's pretty dynamic and badass looking. I love the simplicity and the badass of just black suit, slight silver accents, friggin' skull bugman face, and then a scarf and a hat. It's like, what more do you need than that? And it's also a beautiful homage, or I guess tip of the hat, if you want to be a bit punny about it, to the inspiration for Kamen Rider, Skullman. So, yeah, that is a really good looking figure. I'm going to mess with that a little more later tonight once I'm off the stream, but for now, I'm just going to set him over here, and let's take a sip of our drink, and then check on the chat. Let's check on the chat real quick. Why do I need a self-professed layman to tell me something already know so much about? Oh, all I know in advance is there a range of warfare history Power Rangers series, but I never read. You'd be surprised. You get a little bit of clout. People will take you as an expert in anything, even if they proclaim they're a layman, which tells you a lot about online fandom and whatnot. But I'm not here to poo-poo anyone too hard tonight. I'm here to lift some people up, which brings me back into talking about the journey through the Tokusatsu fandom I kind of went on over the years. So after discovering what Tokusatsu was beyond just Power Rangers from Vangelis, and kind of like spending some time looking around on wikis and watching some other people's videos and stuff like that, getting a feel for it, I did eventually watch a couple very recent shows at the time, and I started watching week to week Superhero Time, and I would occasionally go back and watch a classic show, but it wasn't until the last couple of years where I saw a lot more classic stuff. It was mostly just trying to keep pace with current and the conversation surrounding all that, and a lot of that was because I was getting into Tokusatsu podcasts at the time. Two ones specifically I want to really talk about from this point in my fandom. And the first of which is Dan's Toku Rants, which was primarily a Power Rangers podcast, and it would occasionally go into other Tokusatsu, but it was just mostly interesting to hear a group of friends, because it initially started off as one guy just talking about Power Rangers and Tokusatsu in general, and they admit this themselves, the early episodes weren't that good, so started bringing in a bunch of co-hosts. It eventually became a show that was a bunch of friends hanging out and talking about Power Rangers and general Tokusatsu goings-on. It is long since debunked. It's actually kind of hard to find evidence of its existence online now. I was trying to find a good copy of the logo for the stream, and this was the best one I could find. And even then, the actual download of this image is a little pixelated and ugly. I think the streaming software is doing something to kind of smooth it out, and the fact that it's smaller is helping it out a lot here too. But at the time, it was one of the biggest podcasts in the Tokusatsu fandom because it had a lot of varied, diverse, and dynamic personalities on it talking about stuff. And eventually it just kind of burned itself out. I never found out if there was like some kind of official explanation as to why the show ended. It was just at one point there was a long wait between each episode for like a year, and then they decided to call it quits, and everything kind of slowly got taken down. So I have no idea if the hosts are even on speaking terms with each other anymore, outside of Rider Jetfire and Speed Racer Flubber, because I still keep an eye on both those guys, because I have always found their solo work quite entertaining. Like, if you don't know, Speed Racer Flubber is the guy who's been doing all those comedic Sentai dubs that have been getting shared around on social media over the last year. And he's been doing that shit for years. Like, he started off trying to do that shit and like comedical reviews in a similar style on YouTube, and his early YouTube stuff is great. I really miss those days when he was releasing videos on YouTube, but I understand that he can't now because of how strict Content ID has gotten, and I just hope to be able to keep up with his work as best I can, even though I'm not on Twitter anymore, and he mainly shares his work through Twitter. Hopefully he'll get a Blue Sky, and Blue Sky will get a video uploader fairly soon, and even if not, I know I'll see it through somebody else sharing it somewhere else without his permission, because that's how the internet works. If you make anything remotely popular, it's going to get stolen and reposted by somebody. It's just the way it rolls, which sucks, but what are you going to do? But Dan's Toku Rants was a really entertaining way to kind of keep myself engaged with tokusatsu on a week-to-week basis, aside from just watching the shows, because at the time I didn't even know anybody personally who was into the stuff. It was just kind of me and the people I was observing online. And that also extended to Rider Club Radio. Rider Club Radio was another weekly tokusatsu podcast that eventually turned into a monthly tokusatsu podcast. While I was listening to it, I found them, I want to say, towards the end of Ghost, but they started halfway through Drive and went up until halfway through Geo. And the only reason they stopped during Geo is that they were getting really busy with their lives and they didn't have time to make the show, and also most of them didn't like Geo. And that's something I will say about this podcast specifically. This is more so than Dan's Toku Rants, I feel. This is very much an old internet style of podcast. They don't make them like this anymore because a lot of the humor and opinions are very crass and very in your face, and it can be kind of jarring if you're only used to like modern podcasts. And I know that because I've actually been re-listening to them over the last couple months, because YouTube recently announced that any channel that's been inactive for more than a year is going to get deleted at the end of this year. And obviously this podcast has been over for a good long while, and while you can still find parts of it on iTunes and SoundCloud, the only place you can find all of it is on YouTube. So unless they log in and post something new before the end of December, it's probably the last year I'm going to be able to listen to it all. So I've been going back through it, and I'm actually almost finished. I'm on the point now where they switched to monthly at the beginning of Build. And I'm still enjoying it from the perspective of this is a look back. Definitely I don't agree with all of their opinions now that I have more experience and I've seen more older stuff that they're constantly referencing and using to compare and contrast to the current stuff they're watching. But I do still think it's a very entertaining, very funny listen. I get at least one good laugh out of each episode as somebody who still enjoys that type of internet humor, even though I recognize there's a good reason most people don't do it anymore. And I would say if you haven't listened to Rider Club Radio, or RCR as they usually refer to it for short, yet, take the last chunk of this year as an opportunity to finally go and do that, because I really like the show, and even though some eras of it won't gel with some people, like if you like Kamen Rider Ghost, you're not going to like this podcast. They watched the show week to week as it was coming out, and they vehemently hated it after a certain point. Like, they defended it up until about halfway through the teens, and then they were like, there's just nothing good we can say anymore. This show sucks. And I kind of admire them for trying to stick up for the show for so long before caving in, because I don't like Ghost very much either, and I kind of caved before they did. But RCR is a good time in general. I would say, even though I disagree with them on certain shows like Blade, they're a group of people that parody the idea that Blade doesn't get good until episode 15. I think Kamen Rider Blade is good all the way through, and I think Poppy Pipa Popo is an entertaining and endearing character, but they hated her and liked everything else about Xaid. So it's just one of those things where you got to learn to roll with the punches, I feel, and understand that it's not going to be like anything you'd listen to right now. And on that level, I still have an immense amount of respect for it as something that helped keep me engaged with tokusatsu for a very long time. But that's pretty much all I have to say about both those shows, so why don't I check on the chat, see if anybody else has something to say about these. Obviously, I warmed up to him over the years, and he and I actually get along quite well now. Yeah, I think you've talked about being in contact with him before. I'm glad that you have a good rapport with that guy now, because I kind of consider you as much of a pillar of the Power Rangers community as he is generally considered to be. Database. Good to hear somebody else that isn't beholden to Twitter. Was on it for a few years in high school, but the toxicity got too much of 2020, and then just quit. That's fair. I wrote out a lot of the toxicity for years and years. It's just the fact that certain fandoms I'm in at the moment have gotten particularly bad in this last year, and also the new owner has been making a lot of changes to the site I'm not a fan of. But I still like being able to have a constant outlet for thoughts like that, and a way to advertise my content like that, and also a way to get instantaneous news and communicate with people. And Twitter's really the only website that provides that service, so I needed a Twitter alike, and out of all the Twitter alikes that have sprung up in the last 6 months, I chose to go with Blue Sky. So I'm on Blue Sky now. If anybody wants to go follow me, it's at thevacuuminator.bsky.social. And I would actually recommend Blue Sky to anyone who doesn't like Twitter because of how toxic that site got. It is actually remarkably refreshing how little toxicity and stupidity is on that website. And, like, anything that's overtly negative or potentially harmful for a person, they knock that shit the fuck down real quick. They are really good about moderating on there. And it's probably because they have a way smaller user base right now. But at the moment, Blue Sky is a pretty chill place to hang out, I think. And that's the first one. It's entirely free. If you want another one, Blue Sky, hit me up at my business email. The disillusion of DTR is a bit of a long story. That's fair. I can expect that. Good to hear that. Maybe I'll check it out. Yeah. I should have another invite code in a few days here, and I've already gotten most of my friends on there, so I'll check around with some people, see if they need it first, but I might just start posting those publicly in my community tab for people who need them. We'll see. That idea literally just sprung into my head. But another thing that just sprung into my head is, hey, we got another SH Figure Arts to unbox. And obviously it's going to be this guy. SH Figure Arts Ultraman Reboot, based specifically upon his appearance in Ultra Galaxy Fight, the Destined Crossroads, I believe it is. Yeah, that's the Destined Crossroads. I enjoy the Ultra Galaxy series as just kind of a big, ridiculous comic book crossover event of the Ultramans. As somebody who's a total novice in the Ultra series, it's really entertaining to just have a bunch of characters thrown at you and be told they're going to go do a crazy cosmic thing, and you're just going to see a bunch of cool fights and effects, and just go with it. And because of that, I did take quite a shine to this guy. I know he doesn't have a show of his own. He's actually a like Ultraman who was created for like promotional purposes in Malaysia, I believe. But I like his suit design. I like how it harkens back to the original Ultraman. I like his weapons. And he's just kind of an entertaining focal character in most of the Ultra Galaxy Fight franchise, I feel. So I wanted his figure art, and now I've got it, and now I'm going to unbox it and give it a quick once-over for all of you. This one is sealed, though, so gotta cut the tape. Always remember to be very careful with your cutting utensils. Keep them put away. Obviously, since this guy isn't a Shinchoku Seiho, he comes in a simple window box with just one slide-out tray. And very interesting layout of the accessories, I feel like. Because obviously you've got him in the center of everything. But then there's like one row of hands and another. And then you got his shield, his... is this a Spacium Ray, or does he have a special word for it? I don't remember. And his spear is kind of all along the back of it. Is it a spear or a lance? What's it officially called? I can never tell the difference, because Toku uses spears and lances pretty interchangeably, and by that I mean most characters either just chuck them at their enemy, or they use them like they're a sword. Looking at you, Kamen Rider Baron. Yeah. Let's get a little look at this guy. And here's how you can tell he's fresh. He's still got his little protective plastic around the midsection that they do so the paint doesn't get screwed up during shipping. So I'm gonna pop this guy's midsection apart real quick and take these out. Always a tiny bit of a nerve-wracking process. How's everybody doing so far? How's everybody liking this stream? Is this entertaining? Is this good? Is this what you want to see? Could I try something different? Let me know. I am definitely open to suggestions with these streams because they're going to be a little bit flying by the seat of my pants in terms of planning. I don't exactly know what next month's is. I have an idea, but I don't know if that's going to be what I do for sure. Here is Reboot out of the package. Proportions on this guy, I'm not entirely in love with. I think his chest is just a little bit too bulky. Doesn't look entirely accurate to the suit design in that one spot. The rest of him looks pretty good. Obviously, I don't have his color timer in at the moment, but yeah, I do really like this suit design. And if you don't need 100% suit accuracy, this does still look really good. The camera is mirrored, so I'm always confused about how I should be holding the figure up to the camera. But yeah, this is still a pretty good representation of him. Definitely the best one we've gotten because of his status as a promotional character. Yeah, I'm digging him at the moment. Let's see about putting one of these color timers in. Ooh, jeez. Crap. I think I might have just lost that to the carpet monster. Give me 1 second. Let's see if I can find it real quick while I'm just going here. Hey! It landed with the actual outer part facing up, so I could see the little blue dot and grab it that way. That is his color timer. Is absolutely tiny. So that was incredibly lucky, and also the peg system for it is pretty finicky. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this on camera, but screw it. We gotta try. Okay, there we go, it's in. Yeah, it's two very thin translucent pegs on either side, and it just kind of rests in there. It doesn't feel like it's locked in. So I'm a little scared I might lose that for real, but otherwise, he's pretty solid. His articulation feels fairly up to snuff. It's a little looser than Skull, and the cohesion of the suit isn't as good because Ultras are obviously meant to be much more skin-tight suits than Kamen Riders. But he's got about the same range as my Figuarts Ultraman Zet, maybe a tad more in some spots, actually, I'm finding. So I'm not I'm not heartbroken. I am definitely digging this guy a fair bit. I want to see how easy it is to make his accessories go. Oh, that's cool. The Spacium Ray is actually molded to the alternate hand for it. I figured it was going to be a forearm swap, because I think it comes out of this little part of his forearm, so I figured I'd have to swap that whole forearm off to put the effect on. But no, it's just a simple hand swap, which that might be breakable. Might want to be careful with that, but I still think that's a much more elegant solution than swapping an entire forearm. Oh, it's the same thing with the shield. The shield has its own little sculpted hand, so you don't have to slide it over a specific one. And there is his lance, which is very breakable, obviously, because it's just a long, thin strip of translucent plastic. But yeah, I'm digging this dude. I think he's fairly oh, there is an alternate forearm in here. What's going on there? Is this is there instructions anywhere? Let me take a look. Oh, there's an instruction pamphlet. Fell right out. I want to get a good look at this. Oh, the swappable forearm is actually for the shield. You swap on this thinner forearm onto the other one so that the shield can go over it, because obviously he's got a little mini remnant of his shield normally. That makes sense. That's pretty smart. That's a good job there, Bandai. You're making the good toys, John Bandai. I appreciate you. Yeah. So yeah, that's two W's right there for both SH Figuarts I've unboxed tonight. Obviously, I'm not going to get super robust with these guys because I am on camera and they do have a lot of tiny parts. But hey, if you want to see me get really creative and robust with them and other toys, go follow me on Instagram at @the_Vacuuminator. I do daily action figure photography. I actually just posted a photo today of my SH Figuarts Senchoku Seiho Kamen Rider Black fighting some Marvel Legends grunts and a Power Rangers Lightning Collection monster. So if you want to check that out, link should be in the video description. Yeah, and I think that's all I have to say about that. Let's check up on the chat real quick. I also heard that if a YouTube channel still has videos on it, even if it's not active, YouTube shouldn't delete it. There's new tech news articles I found that said it's YouTube, so that could always change given them. But for now, inactive channels that still have videos should be fine during the end of the year channel purge. That's good to hear. The email I got from them directly made it seem like any channel that had videos on it, so I actually keep-bitted a bunch of stuff off of an old channel I used to run with some friends. But maybe that was a wasted afternoon. I don't know. If it is, though, that's good. I don't mind that. Saves me a little bit of a heartache getting those files to them. Big old thumbs up from Mr. Database, and yeah, Buster Ultraman Reboot was here. He's not here anymore. He's over there, or over there. The camera's reversed. It's hard. I need to stream more so that I get more used to that, so that I'm in that frame of mind when I'm doing this, and I don't have to constantly adjust. Like I've had to constantly adjust to doing another podcast. I'm currently doing a once-monthly podcast with Snowcone83 called Saturday Morning Panels, wherein him and myself take a look at the two biggest news stories from the worlds of Transformers and G.I. Joe each month on the third Thursday of each month. And we also are working our way through reviewing the classic Marvel Comics runs for both franchises. It's only a couple episodes in right now, so it's still a bit of an adjustment on my part to work it into my schedule each month. But it's a really good, enjoyable time, and I think it also has a very unique feel and dynamic compared to a lot of the other shows we do on Modular, just because of the nature of how Snowcone likes to discuss things and go into thoughts and ideas compared to the very similar way myself and Buster and myself and Boingo will get into, because we all have content creator head. He doesn't. He's not currently a content creator. He wants to be at some point, but he's much more of a casual discussion guy, and I think that makes it one of the more interesting podcasts on the channel. So again, youtube.com @Modular Media. If you're not already subscribed, please go do that, and check out Saturday Morning Panels if you're interested in Transformers or G.I. Joe discussions at all. But that brings us up to kind of the modern day of me being an online tokusatsu fan, where I don't really listen to a lot of tokusatsu podcasts or really keep up with a lot of content creators in general. And that's not because, like, I have a particular disdain for anyone. It's just there's nothing that really grabs my interest outside of the stuff my friends are doing. So I figured, for the last little bit of the show, why don't I plug all my friends who are tokusatsu content creators? Because if you just found me and you haven't found any of these other people, if you watch other bigger tokusatsu creators than me and you don't watch these people, you really should correct that. So let's start off with somebody who's in the chat right now. One of my best friends, somebody who I've considered to be a mentor to me at times, Database Ranger. If you're not watching Database's content, now is the time to hop on board, because he has been for the last month and is going to be up until this year in the home stretch of his channel, as he's describing it. He has been working on a project called Database Rangers Power Reviews for over 10 years now, which is a Power Rangers review show that also has a storyline that, without going into spoiler territory, basically makes it into a Power Rangers fan film as well. And it's kind of the best Power Rangers fan film there is, in my opinion. And it's only got a few episodes left that are all going to be out by the end of this year if everything goes according to plan for him. And with that, he has been teasing the possibility of retiring from YouTube in general after that, because of how much of a different place he's in now from where he started with Power Reviews, which was originally only supposed to be like a 3 or 4 year project. But I love all of his content, not just Power Reviews. Power Reviews is a really engaging and insightful show that also just has a lot of fun characters, but also his deeper looks and Toku log videos and his more general analysis are all really entertaining, and the live reactions are often good fun themselves too. So if you're not watching Database Rangers Power Reviews on YouTube, you really should get on that before it's too late to be experiencing it as it's happening, in my opinion. Next person I want to talk about is somebody who, when I met them, wasn't really a tokusatsu creator, but has sort of evolved into it. Boingo Rider, my actual best friend right now. Somebody who I've considered to be my best friend for a few years now, because we co-founded Modular Media together. That is a project we do together, and the original idea for it came from him. I just kind of helped him come up with the name and gave him the push to actually do it. But when I first met Boingo, he was doing video essays on kind of just whatever interested him, and I met him because he was doing video essays on a lot of toy reviewers who I was a fan of already. And so it was very much like, oh, you like this thing, I like this thing, you're doing cool videos about these things, and you don't have so many subscribers that you'll just ignore me if I message you, so I'm going to try and be friends with you. And that eventually blossomed into Boingo being my best friend. And a few years later, current day, Boingo has been doing weekly analysis videos for Kamen Rider Geats. He has done every episode within the week it's come out. Very good, consistent play-by-play analysis going into the themes and whatnot. Also responding to comments in fun and interesting ways. And I do believe the last episode of Gateway to Geats, as it's called, is planned to come out tomorrow, provided the hurricane that's bearing down on him doesn't ruin things. And he will be continuing into Gachard. He's going to be doing Gather Up Gachard starting next week. So definitely go subscribe to Boingo and get into that stuff. And also subscribe to Buster Corp, another member of Modular Media, who we met a little bit after we founded the channel, but has been a valuable ally still, and does probably the best bite-size analysis of tokusatsu there is. They do a lot of other stuff besides just tokusatsu. They do video games and animation and just general movies and things that interest them. But one of their key things is tokusatsu. And the thing that I think makes Buster unique and valuable as a creator is that their content is bite-sized. It's never more than 10 minutes. And it's always interesting and concise and gets to the points of why something is good and interesting and worth checking out, or bad and annoying and worth avoiding. So if you wanna go check that out, again, Geats just ended, so I'm going to be referencing Geats a lot here. Buster just put out a video on Geats yesterday that's only like 8 minutes long and still hits a lot of the points that I would take like 20-30 minutes to hit in one of my videos, and hits them well. So go check out Buster's channel if you haven't. And last but not least, go check out Tim Shields, the president of Zaya Enterprise America. He's somebody who I've only met in the last year or so, but was just immediately impressed by his scripted content, and am now impressed by his unscripted content. It's obviously much more long-formed than Buster or even what I do, but it's still really interesting and engaging, and Tim is also just one of the funniest motherfuckers I've ever met in my life. His tokusatsu memes are almost always bangers, and he's really good at just making jokes casually, even though he claims that he doesn't understand humor. So, fantastic channels, 4 fantastic tokusatsu channels for all of you to check out, besides myself, if you haven't already. And that pretty much brings me to the end of everything I have to talk about on my itinerary here. So before I close out the stream, why don't I check on the chat one more time? Oh wow, you guys have been hopping. Databased. Why is Rider Club Radio on the thumbnail? Aki, I talked about them a little bit earlier in the show. You'll have to catch that on the replay. I have been slowly going through it, but missing episodes have been a bummer. I bet when I initially got into Power Rangers fandom, Database was one of my first subscribers, and I have been honored to watch his Power Reviews conversation context looks. Yeah, you are welcome for the kind words, Database. Boingo the Goat. I can agree with that. Thanks, Database, for all your work and you've done getting into Power Rangers franchise more and more. I wish you luck in the next phase of your life beyond the Power Reviews. Aw, that's really sweet of you to type there, Isabella. Will miss you a lot, Database, when you retire. Oh man, it's just a friggin' Database love fest up in here. I love it. Should have named it Dick's Hard for Gachard. Oh man, I tried to get him to go with Gotta Get Gachard, or Get Your Gachard On, but he went with Gather Up Gachard, and that's a fine enough name. Shout out to the boys, you know who you are. Love the varied content of Modular Media that has been put out. I really love the 2022 Summit videos that you all put out last year, especially your own video on Cole. Thank you so much! I really appreciate that. We worked hard to make that stuff happen, and I was really proud of the Kolyoko lecture. There's one or two things I'd change about it looking back, but overall, I think it came out really well, and, you know, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but it was the most successful video out of the summit, and that's because I hammered the Kolyoko fandom, ingratiating myself for months beforehand, and then I added all the accounts I had made friends with the day it came out, and they all shared it. So, good work, me, but also it's nice that went so well. Should give me the #1 fan of Modular Media shout out. Okay, Aki, here's your shout out. Anyway, that's probably one of my favorite shows of all time, and it was great to hear someone giving it the respect and referring to it as a show with, not referring to it as just the show with big foreheads. Thank you. Definitely agree there, Isabella. Database with a clapping emoji. Okay, so that gets me caught up on the chat, and that pretty much brings me to the end of the stream, except there's one more thing we got to do. Because as an added incentive to make sure you all watch these streams all the way to the end and come and join live, I changed up my schedule a little bit this month when I decided to incorporate these into the regular schedule. Because now we're doing 3 pre-recorded videos or 4 pre-recorded videos if it's a longer month, and then a stream at the end of the month in place of a video. And because of that, my behind the scenes podcast which is about what goes into making the videos and how I'm feeling about things week to week, and is exclusive to $1 plus patrons. Again, patreon.com/thevacuuminator. Hit over and pledge if you haven't already. That's now coming out a week earlier than it used to, and that's because I still wanted to have some exclusivity for folks there, again, with all that behind the scenes content, but also with the fact that at the end of that podcast every month, I always tell people what my plan for videos for next month is. And this month, I decided that patrons are still going to get the jump on that. All my patrons still know what's coming up next month a few days early. But at the end of these streams, I'm going to announce what my planned topics, not exactly what the idea going into them is, but just the topics of the videos next month are. And I think we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to close out. So, next month, obviously, I had originally advertised that we were going to do a trilogy of themed months starting in July. And then the second month fell through because of just some bad personal feelings that came up towards the end of that month. And that's why this became a month sort of about my journey as a tokusatsu fan, thematically. And next month, I was going to still try and do a theme month. I had planned to do a month on a comic book character that's very near and dear to my heart, and you probably know who it is if you've been watching me for a good long time. But some art assets I need for that are taking longer than expected, so I've decided to just postpone it until those art assets are ready, and it's not going to be a theme month anymore. It's going to be just a general retrospective that takes as long as it needs to take when it happens. Instead, I pulled some ideas I had saved back for the end of the year of just things I wanted to cover for a long, long time and have never gotten around to. Because remember, that was one of the key ideas going into this year, is just getting a lot of those things I wanted to talk about for a long time, but haven't, because writing a script about it has been too daunting. No, just jot down some bullet points and then freestyle it and edit it into something watchable. That's the idea behind the channel right now. And so next month we're going to be doing 3 of those ideas, plus a stream that I'll be announcing at a later date. But without any further ado, those topics are going to be Pacific Rim, Kamen Rider Kuga, and Dobutsu Sentai Zyuohger. If all things go according to plan, that will be the 3 videos you get next month in that order. I will, of course, say card subject to change if something happens and I can't make a video one week, or I just feel really passionate about doing a different video one week. Those things will get pushed back a week or 2, maybe a month, we'll see. But right now, that is the plan. That is what I am going into next month trying to do, is videos on Pacific Rim, Kamen Rider Kuga, and Dobutsu Sentai Zyuohger, because those are 3 pieces of media that mean a lot to me and I have a lot to say about, and I have wanted to say those things for quite a long time. So I hope you will engage with the algorithm, like, comment, subscribe, type in the chat, ring that bell, and enable notifications so that you get to see those videos when they come out. Again, support me on Patreon if you can. Check me out on social media if you can. You got @the_Vacuuminator on Instagram and TikTok, thevacuuminator.bsky.social on Blue Sky, and thevacuuminator.tumblr.com on Tumblr in order to keep up with everything I'm doing as the days and weeks progress. But all you gotta do is subscribe and ring the bell in order to keep up with the main videos that'll be coming out throughout the month of September. So that's going to do it for tonight's stream. Thank you to everyone who came out and joined me in the chat or just as a lurker if you did that. I still appreciate it. If you're watching on the replay, don't forget to like and leave a comment. It helps me out in the algorithm immensely. And yeah, folks, that's it for this stream. I know there were a bit of flub-ups, and I wasn't entirely perfect on everything, and I didn't go as in-depth as on the figure arts as I possibly could have, but I still made a valiant effort. I still tried. And that's what I always do. Because remember, you never fail until you stop trying. Until next time.